All right. Today I figured we'd do something a little bit different. For the next few videos, figured I'd do like a little sort of mini series, kind of looking at a bunch of the toys that I personally was into when I was a kid. So kind of like mid to late 2000s and some a bit older series like that I had little kind of micro collections of when I was a kid that I still have. And today that is going to take the form of UB Funkies, which was a neat little brand that started in 2007 and was made by Mattel. It's not the first example, but is there were plenty games like this before UB Funkies, but it was the one that sort of introduced me to the concept of toys to life games, which basically, if you're unfamiliar, were these types of games that think like Amiibo or Skylanders or Disney Infinite or something like that, where like you'd buy these little collectible figures, and then they had some ability to connect to a hub or whatever, which is what this guy is up here, that would influence how you'd play a computer game that related to them. So for these guys, it's the UB Funkies game. Here, I've got the disc here. I no longer, unfortunately, have a computer that can actually run it. I mean, it was discontinued in 2010, so I'm pretty sure that like the online features of the game obviously don't work, but I'm pretty sure that like if you have a computer that can run this game, at the time it was for you had to do it on Windows. I'm pretty sure it would still run. Like you could still probably do it. Just again, like some of the online features would be obviously not available. But yeah, it was a fun little game. Basically, what it was like you had these little mini games you could go around and play, and what the different characters were basically like you had access to different areas that had different games, and they all had their own game that they could access, right? So like you have the main hub here, the UB guy, who's got this cord that you would connect to your computer through a USB port. UB Funkies, like fun keys. So it's kind of like USB key kind of thing. It's kind of cool. And then you had this guy here, and you see he's got this little slot on his head kind of cut out, and you could take these guys who all have this little magnetic strip underneath them, and you could attach them to the top there. And then depending which one you attached, that's who your avatar would show up as in the game, which is a pretty cool concept. Obviously that's been done a lot since then. But these guys always seemed like a little bit more affordable than what those games would end up becoming. Like the Skylanders, where like, oh, you'd pay $10 for a figure that's like that big. Whereas these guys, I think at least were like only $5, if I'm remembering correctly. And you could also get like some packs of them. I don't remember all the exact pricing, but it never seemed as egregious to me as like things like Skylanders. But yeah, they all kind of share the same little body type here. I like them because they're like these little vinyl figures that always felt very like designer toy-esque to me. Like if you're familiar with anything like, Dunny or Labbit or Money or, any of those sort of like collectible art toy things, like these guys always felt very much in that zone. Like they've got a fun little posture here, except, they were created in the main line. So it's like, yeah, not quite as niche as like designer toy things, but it always felt very much in that realm to me, which is something that I appreciated and I was super into back then. But yeah, they each have a different game that they could play. I have no memory of what each of the games were, but I do know that they had like these different zones that they could access, where like obviously this one, you could access the home world, the Funkies town with this guy, and then you would just be the normal one. And that was the same with these two. Like they had their own games. This is Lotus and Scratch, I'm pretty sure. And you could they each had their own games, but these two were the ones that were also just kind of like contained to the starting area. And then the other thing that was about them that was pretty neat is that they each had three color schemes: a normal, a rare, and a ultra rare. I unfortunately don't have all three of any one of them. I have like, of these guys, like this is the ultra rare Lotus. The original Lotus is like the same, but all the blue parts are black basically. And I think that the regular rare one is yellow. And then like this guy is the rare version of Wasabi, and the regular version of Wasabi had all black. And then I think the ultra rare was white. And then you can see what I'm talking about. He's like, here, this guy's Bones, and then here is the rare Bones, and I don't have the ultra rare one. Or like Deuce is what this guy was called, and here's the rare Deuce. So you can see just kind of like the same basic paint scheme, just like with their primary color kind of switched to a different thing. Just show off the other ones that I have here. Here's two different versions of this guy. His name was Glub. And let's see, two different versions of this guy, Boggle. Fun little alien guy. So yeah, let's see if I can remember this correctly. Okay, so these three were the ones for like Funkeys Town. Then we had a place called Laputa Station, which was kind of more like sci-fi themed. That had this guy who was my favorite when I was a kid because I always loved aliens and stuff like that. His name is Zener, I think. This guy, Vroom. This guy is Fallout, and then Boggle, the little alien guy. So they were all in a zone together. Then in the, let's see, the Kelpie Basins, we had, what's your name? Let me look it up. It's probably like Tiki. Yeah, there we go. So we had Tiki, Twinks, Glub, and who else? And Sprout were in the Kelpie Basin. So kind of like, you can see the general theme here is like nature-y themed, plant-based guys or underwater guys. And then the Magma Gorge, I think, was the other one. We had Deuce, Stitch, Bones, and Wasabi. And like I said, this is the rare version of Wasabi, not the common. All like this is the ultra rare one, and this is the rare one, and then the other ones are all just the common versions. But yeah, nice little teams there. And then eventually they did an expansion to this, which was basically their series 2, which was called Funkeys Island. And they introduced 4 new characters. This is Soul, Nibble, let me see, Webley, and Flurry. And it was basically like a little tropical island theme. And then there was also like a snowy section, which is why this one doesn't quite make as much sense. And I'm not sure like if these are the rare or the common versions. I'm pretty sure these 2 are common and these 2 are rare. Maybe that one's ultra rare. Don't totally remember. But yeah, there's Series 2 ones that I have. And then Series 3, which I don't have any of, unfortunately, was they did like a crossover with like Speed Racer, which I think is pretty neat. And then what else do I have here? I've got some Series 4 guys. Oops, sorry. We've got this guy here whose name is Burger. He's a little cow. This guy's name is Drift. And this guy, Tep, I think, like Ptep. So he's got like an Egyptian sort of mummy theme going on. And then another thing that they did in Series 4 is they introduced some guys that had a different head shape. And this one, let me see. I've got like a whole spreadsheet here so I can remember their names because they're kind of hard to remember. Gabby. But yeah, this is the only one of those that I have. And it was probably my least favorite of this version of them. But some of them are kind of like marked up. A lot of these I had as a kid, and then some of them I found later at like thrift shops and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a pretty cool little toy line. They only have like really one point of articulation, which is just the head can rotate, and that's it. And that's kind of all they need. And then later, so in the game itself, right, there were some characters that you couldn't actually play. Like there was this like old man guy here. He's on the cover here, who was like the leader of the town or something like that. And then there was an evil guy and his evil henchman, and you couldn't actually get toys of those until like years later. They released these separate adventure packs that had basically just like toys of those characters and made them playable. And unfortunately, I don't have the adventure pack with him in it or the henchman, but I do have the one that came with the Funkeys Island adventure pack, which had some of the characters that you couldn't play from Funkeys Island. Like this guy, his name is Jerry, who I'm not as thrilled with, just because like when you're looking at him top down, you kind of just can't see him because his hat is there. And if you take it off, then he doesn't have his like distinctive, hairstyle and hat. But he's otherwise the same mold as the rest of them. It just doesn't work quite as well when you're like, in the game, you're looking at him from this perspective, right? Because you're seeing him from the perspective of these guys. But like as a toy, doesn't display super well unless you're putting him like way, way, way high up on a shelf. But that adventure pack came with him, and then also 2 of the Islanders are like a little, native, and then a native chief or whatever for the Funkeys Island. So kind of a little, tiki theme going on. So kind of neat that, later on you could play with, as, I found these years later, so I never like got to see what the game features were for being able to play as these characters. I just found this at a thrift store like less than a year ago. So I don't know. Eventually I might try to like find an emulator or something to like see if I can try to play the game, since I do have the disc here, even though my laptop doesn't even have a disc drive anymore. So I'd have to figure that out. But yeah, it's a cool thing. And then some packs later had like, different versions of the starting guy there, so you could have like a different pattern on him. So kind of a cool idea. Again, like the game itself for me was always just kind of a bonus. I really just liked these little collectible figures that were like, for what they were, and especially when, I was a kid and it wasn't my money paying for it, they were relatively cheap compared to like other similar things. And they felt like a mainline type thing of like the designer toy market of all these like vinyl figures, which of course nowadays is like much more popularized by like pop vinyls and stuff like that. But back then, like back in the late 2000s or early 2010s, it really felt more like a, kind of a undermarket. Like there still is like stuff like Kid Robot and things like that definitely is that sort of like artist market for designer toys. But I was always into that aesthetic, but obviously a lot of those were really expensive. So then seeing these guys was just like really awesome to me, to be able to like collect some of these guys and have them and have it feel like that. And then on top of that, it had a bunch of, fun mini games that you could play along with that. But yeah, this guy, Zener, was probably my favorite. Him and Lotus, I really liked a lot. I also like Fallout too. I think it's just like the little, gas mask aesthetic there. But yeah, all of them are pretty cool. They're simple, they're fun, they look good together on a shelf. They've got lots of bright colors. But yeah, it's just a neat little toy line and not really much else to say about it. I'll be excited to come back for Sunday's review with something else a little bit different from that era. But yeah, as for now, here we are with the review of 2007 Mattel UB Funkies.